So here's the situation. Anthony's giving a class about basic Amiga repair. He's got a bone to pick with some of the Amiga 4000 capacitors.
Right.
And then the unexpected happens.
In walks Greg Berlin, designer of the machine, who's manager of high-end systems at Commodore, and simply couldn't resist asking him if he'd give us an interview. And he graciously said yes.
This is obviously very unexpected. We didn't have any questions prepared, but Greg was nice enough to come by after the class and have a little chat with us. So enjoy, guys.
Yeah, enjoy it. Of course, what happened today during the classes, I'm talking about some stuff that I read online about capacitors in the audio circuit.
Yeah, something faulty about the capacitors.
And Bill Hurd is in the room, and suddenly I look over and he's gone, and I figure he has something going on in the tent. Not a couple of minutes later, he comes back in with you, and there's the designer. And I think you might have said something like that.
I said, yeah, you bad-mouthing my board?
And I pretty much at that moment figure I'm about to get schooled. And he's a big guy. So I'm looking for the back door. And especially because afterwards, we walked around and I hear some of the stories about you guys fighting in the halls and bumping each other against walls. And I'm like, if I knew those stories beforehand, I definitely would have been out the window.
Yeah, Bill.
But it was all good. We looked over the machine.
Yeah.
We had a good time.
Yeah,
I had a good time.
That was fun. I hadn't looked inside one in a long time, so it was fun to check it out. So thanks.
All right, so we're here with Greg Berlin. Many of us will know him as the designer of some of our favorite Amigas, but obviously you started at Commodore well before that.
I was with Commodore from '82 to like '96, I guess, something like that. Started out with the 8-bit stuff, doing peripheral stuff. And I was actually doing the disk drives. I did the disk drive for the plus 4 and then the 1571 for the 128. So back in the 8-bit days, I did the disk drive stuff. And then in the Amiga stuff, I started doing motherboards. And actually, my title at the end was manager of high-end Amiga systems. So I managed a group of guys, hands-on, of course, because I like to play the sand. I'm not a manager by any stretch of the imagination. But we did all of the expandable stuff, 2000, 3000, 4000 series, and there was another group that was George Robbins headed up that did the 500, 600, the kind of the lower end stuff, which was popular in Europe. So all my stuff was a lot of U.S. sales. All the other stuff was mostly European.
At what point did you move from peripherals to designing the system?
So. On the Amiga stuff, so the Amiga stuff was initially developed in California with a different group that Commodore purchased. And then after the 1000 introduced, in the 2000, I wasn't involved in a motherboard in 2000. I was working on some other projects. I was doing a lot of stuff that we worked on that didn't come out. So I did like a hard drive for the 64 and 128 that didn't work, that didn't come out. We did a laser printer. I had like this shared DRAM design that was embedded in the 2000 for doing laser printer. They didn't. So I had a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that didn't see the light of day, right? But then I guess my first peripheral for the Amiga was a 2232. There was a 7-port serial card. I did that.
I have 2 of those.
Do you? Yeah. You know why there aren't 8 ports like everybody else?
No, I
don't. The connectors wouldn't fit in the back.
Oh well, it is a pretty long string of connectors on that card.
It only fit 7, so it was kind of an odd number. People are like, well, why didn't you do the 8 like everybody else? Because we didn't want to make the octopus cable. We just wanted to have regular connectors, and that's all it would fit. And then I started doing the motherboard stuff. So for the 3000. I did some of the system chips, the Gary, the Ramsey. I did those gate arrays. The original DMAC was done by a guy named Jeff Boyer. I redid that after he left because it had some issues, so I redid that from scratch. Completely compatible software. It's funny, the first version of that, the DMA controller that I redid, absolutely perfect, completely, it worked perfectly. With one problem, with the software compatibility, I got the read and write bit backwards. So to test that it worked, there was this tower on top of it that actually would, when you're writing that register, it would capture it and invert the bit. So we proved that the thing was completely compatible and worked with the same software after we put this little dongle on top of it. So unfortunately, there was a Rev 2. Oops.
Oh well. There's a lot of...
So from that point on, I did the motherboard stuff. So 3000, 4000, 3000T, 4000T. So I was actually, my title then was manager of the high-end Amiga group. So We did all the expandable stuff, and then there was another group that had George Robbins was in charge of that did all the lower end stuff, the 500, 600, 1200.
Was there a lot of crossover between the two groups when the machines were being designed?
No, I mean they were different. So there was different custom chips that were in the, custom gate arrays that were in the those machines, the 500, 600s, as opposed to the stuff we were doing in the high end. So they were pretty different. Yeah, different stuff.
The leap from peripherals to working on the systems themselves, was that just a natural thing? Was that something you went like back to school for?
No.
It just kind of flow?
No, I mean I just kind of learned on the job. I mean peripherals were a similar system. You know, they had a microprocessor and they had RAM and they had ROM. I mean it was a system kind of unto itself. You know, it wasn't that much different. The 68,000 series stuff and 16-bit, all that, the whole timing and everything, because I've been used to everything with 6502, so I knew like the timing and every little idiosyncrasies of 6502. So of course I had to learn the new stuff, but it wasn't that difficult a transition. No.
So how was it at Commodore when they made that transition from the 8 bits to suddenly the Amiga?
Well, it was, like I said, we bought this company out in California that had the Amiga stuff, and it was kind of like an us and them kind of thing in the beginning, because it's different. It's a different group of people out there, so it was a totally different engineering team. They were upset because they wanted to make a game machine, and we were going to make it into a computer. And so the guys out at California in this new company, they were unhappy with what Commodore was doing with it. We were happy to have it because it was cool stuff, right? So they did the initial 1000 and all that kind of stuff, and then when the next machine, the 2000, pretty much all that work was done in Westchester.
After the 4000, was there anything you were working on at Commodore that just never ended up getting finished?
4000, then we did a 4000T version, and there was a lot of stuff. I mean, there was cost reduced this and that, but to be honest with you, I can't remember. I mean, we just kind of made bigger and better versions of existing stuff. I mean, it was all kind of going downhill at that point.
Right. So there really wasn't any work on.
There was new stuff. There was the AAA stuff. Dave Haney was working on he did some motherboards to proof of concept for the AAA stuff, and we had that stuff up and running and working. And that was the next thing that we would have done had things kept going, is we would have done the AAA based machines. And unfortunately, that didn't come about.
I've read some stuff about something called Hombre. I guess it was moving towards a PCI based. Do you remember being involved in any of that?
Yeah, I remember that, but that was more Dave's thing. Yeah, more Dave's thing. My memory is sketchy. This is fun being here today to see all the stuff, and you corrected me on a few things. Looking at my own motherboard, like, oh yeah, you're right, because I hadn't looked at it in so long. It's funny.
Well, it is amazing to be there with the person who designed the motherboard of what is considered the best of the Amiga line. So
they were pretty robust, yeah.
It is incredible that something designed really to maybe work 5 years. I mean, what was the idea? What was the thought amongst engineers of how long these would probably operate?
You know what? It was a computer, and they changed on a monthly basis. I mean, people get one to be obsolete in 6 months. Something new and great came out. Who the hell would have thought people would still be using them? Right? We never thought that.
Well, you guys
we figure if it works for a year, you go out and buy something better, right? You never dreamed that people would still be using them. And I'm glad they still work. And I'm glad people are still enjoying them. But people over the years, people begged me out of all mine. I'm like, okay, if you want this, sure, fine. I wish I'd have kept them. I wish I still had some of them. I may have some motherboard stuff in a box somewhere, but yeah, I wish I'd have kept some for kind of a keepsake.
I know some people have prototypes that they managed to keep from back in the day. Do you think you have anything that you know, some of that stuff that never made it to market, or was it just you were moving to the next thing so fast that you weren't really worried
no,
about?
I didn't. I wish, boy, I wish I had some stuff to show. I mean, we had towers on top of towers, and you know, because stuff back in then, we wouldn't make PC boards in the beginning. We'd wire wrap everything. You know, we'd make prototypes, the whole thing wire wrapped, and they would get pretty complex. And then of course you make a mistake, so you make a tower on the wire wrap, and then you have another tower. And I mean, some of these were like, you know, cities with these things going up in the air. Unfortunately, things were running slow enough in those days that you could get away with this. The signal integrity wasn't so critical in a lot of the stuff. That you can get away with that, but yeah, I wish I'd have kept some of that stuff. No, I don't. I wish. I know some guys that do. I know some guys that do. I told you that Fred Bowen, for example, has been showing a lot of stuff recently on Facebook. He's been digging through his basement. He's got stuff. I mean, look.
It is great. It is great that someone has that stuff, though, that we can still see like what they were, how they were designing these things. And it's right. I mean, you see these. I mean, you see the original custom chips. It's all these boards with all these wires, and you know, it's just amazing that you guys can keep that stuff straight. I mean, as I asked you before this interview, you're actually in the Deathbed Vigil video, so you were there. You were there pretty late.
So I was there to the very end. So I was there until, you know, when Commodore kind of went under, and they wanted to sell the intellectual property. So there was like 12 or I forget the number, 12 or 15 engineers that were the intellectual property, and so they basically paid us double. They paid us double to do absolutely nothing, and this went on for quite a while. I mean, I built a deck on my house that summer, and I did all kinds of cool stuff, and we'd show up Friday and get our paycheck, hopefully, and we'd all race to the bank to see whose would clear. The first category. And they kept clearing, so it worked out okay, and that went on for quite a while, and then they never did actually sell it at that point. They did later, and then so they finally let us go, but that was a great summer, great time.
So besides the deck on your house, what were you doing during that time? And I guess probably, were you looking around to see what other jobs were out there, or were you?
I had another job that I was kind of doing part-time toward the end, and I actually got involved in LASIK eye surgery. And so there was a guy in King of Prussia, the Kremer Laser Eye Center. I built his first laser, wrote all the software for doing the surgery, and built the beam shaper and stuff. So it was kind of something different besides computers, but it had computers in it.
A lot different from an Amiga, that's for sure.
Yeah, it did that for a while. That was pretty cool. So, we were talking about the disk drive in the wall. I guess that was in a Deathbed Vigil.
Yes, that is.
And
in
I think
the
that was
video.
Hedley Davis who one day got frustrated and took a 3.5-inch floppy drive and threw it to the wall, and part of it was sticking out of the wall, and somebody put a frame around it. And it was there for long. It was there till the end. Nobody wanted to get rid of it.
So did you ever commit acts on frustrated hardware like that?
I'm sure I did. I'm sure that you know the curse words were flying many times, no doubt.
Just nothing that got framed on the wall.
No. I don't do anything extreme like that. I know, like Bill broke his hand on the wall once, punching the wall, but no, I'm pretty mellow. I mean, I'm a big guy, but I'm pretty mellow. I'm pretty laid back.
So it's interesting that you're pretty mellow. It seems like a lot of the guys were really
intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we were, like I said, we were young and we would party and have a good time. You know, it was all high speed. You know, it was crazy. I wonder how I survived it. Sometimes.
We've already seen you in Deathbed Vigil taking chips out of the machine. So come on, what could be worse?
Probably stomping on keyboards and driving my car over them.
Oh, were you one of the guys stomping the keyboards?
Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
Oh, you were there?
Yeah, I was there. Bill always had to show he was the big man on campus, right? Bill. So he always wanted to pick a fight with me and wrestle, and so we were constantly doing that. And he's got many injuries, like the big bump on his shoulder he was showing you.
Yeah,
he
mentioned that
one day. Yeah. So he usually came up on the short end of that, but he persisted in doing it for some reason. I don't know.
Well, I guess it's like they say when you go to prison, you want to go after the toughest looking guy to show how tough you are. And I guess you being so tall, he figured.
It was a way of reducing stress. You know?
Yeah. So I imagine you're trying to get products out for a certain time frame. I mean, I guess that's got to be crazy stressful at times.
It was fun, and it was very stressful, yeah. And we were young and full of energy, so So it wasn't so bad. So it was, you know, and of course we didn't have families then, so we could, you know, you could stay all night, you could do whatever you had to do, and it was a different time. That was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Right. So how would you categorize the time at Commodore?
It was great. I loved it. I'm so glad that I decided to go on that interview and ended up working there. It's something I'm very proud of. Very proud of that. You know, I made something that people liked and sold lots of them, and yeah, something I can look back on very, very fondly.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
All right,
Thank
my
you very much,
pleasure.
and thank you very much for trying to help me with my 4000.
Unfortunately, we did not get it to work, so
Well,
we will give me a call. I may have some motherboards in the basement somewhere.
that'll eventually. We will get that machine working again. I'll let you
Yeah.
know. I'll let you know when that 4000's alive again.
Yeah, that'd be fun to play with.
This was just great meeting you. Thank you. Thank you
Cool.
very much for your time.
Thank you. All right.